I was sent this story. It's a Washington Post exclusive where cops, police officers across the board were using their badge to target children, typically children. And it's called Abused by the Badge. Here are the investigators. You can see these names right here. It says a Washington Post investigation found hundreds of law enforcement officers in the United States have SE actually exploited kids. Many avoid prison time. They served in police departments big and small. They were new recruits and seasoned vets, patrol officers, and chiefs of police. They understood the power of their guns and badges. In many cases, they used that very power to find and silence their victims. This is another reason why people say don't date cops, because they can silence them. They can silence the people that are closest to them, including ex spouses or ex girlfriends. All right. A Washington Post investigation has found that over the past 2 decades, hundreds of law enforcement officers in the United States have SA'd children, while officials at every level of criminal justice system have failed to protect kids, punish abusers, and prevent additional crimes. Police and sheriff's departments have enabled predators by botching background checks, ignoring red flags, and mishandling investigations. Accused cops have their knowledge of the legal system to stall cases, get charges lowered, or evade convictions. Prosecutors have given generous plea deals to officers who admitted to raping and groping minors. Judges have allowed many convicted officers to avoid prison time. All the while, children in every state and DC have continued to be targeted, groomed, and violated by officers sworn to keep them safe. Cops are the enforcers of the patriarchy, and judges are the arbiters of the consequences. And they are all playing their role in keeping these people, to play their part in the patriarchy. That's why these people don't go punished. James Blair, he's from North Carolina. He was a police officer, met a 13-year-old girl who ran away from home. He offered to help her with schoolwork and presented himself as a mentor. Months later, court's records show he got the girl pregnant, convicted in 2017. This is another reason why how you create babies. If you create kids in chaos and they run away, these people are who they could be running to. This is one of the reasons why I am very, very pro-choice, because if you have kids in chaos and dysfunction and abuse just because you simply had to have the baby and you didn't really want the baby, you could be sending them straight to these people. And that's another reason why I think they want to make sure that women don't have control or access to reproductive care. They want to create babies just so they have kids that could be taken advantage of and preyed upon by these types. Then we have Neil Kimball, a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy. He was accused of essaying a woman after stopping her near a hotel. Prosecutors concluded there was insufficient evidence to file a criminal charge. Kimball was still allowed to become a Special Victims Bureau detective. Then he essayed a 15-year-old girl, Lord, whose case he'd been assigned to investigate. He was convicted in 2019. So he essayed a woman, got off scot-free, and then went on to essay a 15-year-old girl. Then we have Brian Hansen, a Nevada, Missouri police officer. He brought a 16-year-old girl who was interested in becoming a cop on ride-alongs. According to state investigators, he essayed her in his patrol car and at a police shooting range. When Hansen pleaded guilty to statutory sodomy, he was sentenced to probation. He was convicted in 2022. Cases like these are not unique. The Post identified at least 1,800 state and local law enforcement officers who were charged with crimes involving child SA from 2005 to 2022. Reporters spent more than a year unearthing thousands of court filings, police records, and other documents to understand who these officers are, how they gain access to children, and what is and isn't being done to stop them. The Post also conducted an exclusive analysis of the nation's most comprehensive database of police arrests. Counting police crimes. The Abused by the Badge series examines police officers accused of SAing children and the systemic failures that allow these crimes to occur. The Post data on at least 1,800 officers was built and analyzed in collaboration with Bowling Green State University, Henry A. Wallace Police Crime Database. The database managed by Bowling Green State University tracks news reports of arrests of law enforcement. Of the hundreds of thousands of sworn officers in the United States, only a fraction are ever charged with crimes, and not all arrests are reported in the news media. But from 2005 to 2022, Bowling Green identified about 17,700 state and local officers who were charged with crimes, including physical assault, drunken driving, and drug offenses. The Post found that 1 in 10 of those officers were charged with a crime involving child SA. This type of police conduct has gone largely unrecognized by the public and unaddressed within the criminal justice system. When pressed by the Post, some police officials, prosecutors, and judges admitted they could have done more to hold officers accountable in the cases they handled. But nationwide, there has been little reckoning over child abusers within the ranks of law enforcement. This is heinous conduct that we cannot tolerate, said Assistant U.S. Attorney General Kristen Clarke, who heads the division of the Justice Department that prosecutes officers accused of civil rights violations. Members of law enforcement who have exploited their positions of power, she said, have left child victims with no recourse and no one else to protect them. When the protectors and the predators are the same, who can you run to, especially when those predators are protected by the legal system that they know so well? Who are the 1,800 officers? Officers charged with child sex crimes worked at all levels of law enforcement on forces as big as roughly 33,600 officer New York Police Department, and as small as a 2-officer agency in Gauley Bridge, West Virginia. The officers pictured here are among those convicted of serious crimes, including child SA, such as rape, SA, and child molestation, among other charges. 99% of arrested officers were male. 99%. So when people say, well, women do it too, 99% of arrested officers were male. 66% of arrested officers had more than 5 years of service. 47 of those arrested were chiefs of police, top sheriffs, or other agency heads. Nearly 40% of convicted officers were not sentenced to prison. Nearly 40% got off scot-free. Keep that in mind. These people are still out there knowing how to get around the justice system because they did not have to go to jail and face any consequences of their actions. Who were targeted? Nearly 3/4 of kids in the Post analysis were teenagers. Officers were rarely related to the children they were accused of raping, fondling, or exploiting. So here are the ages of the victims, typically girls. So keep that in mind. You can look at this chart. Police and court documents show that abusive officers frequently spent months befriending and grooming kids. Many used the threat of arrest or physical harm to make their victims comply. After cops were charged with child sex crimes, some agencies tried to distance themselves in news reports by saying the alleged misconduct happened while the officers were off duty. Like that really makes that big of a difference. But not all law enforcement leaders believe that distinction matters. In Lake Wales, Florida, where 3 officers have been charged with crimes including child SA since 2005, Police Chief Chris Velasquez says these kinds of accusations must be taken seriously no matter when or where the alleged misconduct occurred. We have to be able to maintain the trust of the public. People see us as law enforcement regardless of whether we're on duty or off duty. But the Post found that in cases across the country, even if the abuse occurred while the officers were off duty, they regularly met with victims through their work. So here's how the cops met their victims. They were on patrol doing speeding tickets, DV calls, rape investigations, unalivement attempts, curfew enforcement, noise complaints, finding runaways, making arrests, witnesses to crimes. So these people were doing their jobs. They were supposed to be protecting and serving, and they were preying on kids. Youth focused assignments. Oh my goodness. School resource officers, Boy Scouts, police explorers. Oh my goodness. Youth cadets, dared officers, ride-alongs, police athletic league, crosswalk duty. Y'all, we really have got to do a better job with protecting our kids. Community outreach, doing fundraisers, community center work, restaurants, a neighborhood walk, a skating rink. This is totally nefarious. Officers were charged with a wide variety of crimes involving child SA. Some officers faced charges related to the possession, production, or distribution of child SA photos or videos. Though the specific names of charges can vary across states, the majority of arrested officers were charged with crimes involving the direct abuse of children, including rape and forcible fondling. Okay, so then they gave us this chart talking about the charges. 39% were charged with rape, 20% child SA material, 19% forcible fondling, 7% was online solicitation, and 14% was other. Embedded in this article, there were a couple of stories with, the different tales and narratives from the victims. I will pursue that in another video, but I wanted you to see the start of this investigation and what we are dealing with in this country. How are we going to take rape seriously, or act like we're taking rape seriously, if the perpetrators are the people that are supposed to be protecting us? And in a time where women's and girls' rights are being snatched away. So even if a girl or a woman was raped, how are they going to have a life if they can't take control of their reproductive system, especially if consent was snatched away? All of this goes hand in hand. All of this goes in this political climate where women and girls are having our reproductive rights snatched away. And then you have this going on. Y'all, this is terrible, but jump in the comments. Let me know what you think about this. And don't forget to like, comment, and share.